Hey guys, and welcome to the podcast, Simply Soccer Podcast. I have no idea what week we're on. I'm actually going to check right now. Number 8, number 9, sorry, week number 9. So we're going to do this one a little bit differently. Usually I answer your questions specifically, and I'm definitely going to answer some of your questions in this one. But I want to talk about a specific topic that I think can help a lot of you guys out there. Now, before we do that, what I'm going to be doing with podcasts and a lot of my videos actually, I'm not going to be releasing them specifically on Wednesday every week now. I might if this works out, but I'm going to be releasing them pretty randomly, or not randomly. What we're going to do is if this podcast gets 50 likes and 10 shares on social media, I will release the next podcast. Okay, guys? So once this podcast hits 50 likes, which you can go down obviously to this video, hit like to contribute, and 10 shares, and all that counts as a share. If you go to the below the video, you'll see an icon that says share. For those of you who are on a mobile device or like a tablet or something, it's like an arrow. Click on that and share this podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, all of those things. And once we get at least 10 of those, I will release the next podcast, which I will already have ready for you guys. I can tell how many shares there are, and I think 50 likes and 10 shares is pretty reasonable. It's not a crazy amount. I think we definitely can do it. But let's get right into this podcast. So what I want to talk to you guys about is skill moves in this podcast. And the reason I want to talk about this topic is because I've been making a lot of skill move videos recently, whether it's skill moves for kids. I have, a lot of how to play like this player and how to play like that player in soccer, which obviously when I do videos like that covers a lot of skill moves. And I just want to kind of delve into this topic because I seem to think that, or it seems to be that many players are confused about what skill moves actually work and what skill moves do not work. Now, there's an important distinction between skill moves that are effective, work, will actually beat defenders, are actually practical, ones that are going to, help you succeed in matches, and then there are skills that are just not going to work. So we're going to cover first and foremost in this podcast what skill moves work. We're also going to cover when they work, because there's some skill moves you should not be doing in some situations, and there are other skill moves you should be doing in some situations. And we're going to also talk about other aspects of skill moves like timing. We're going to talk about situational skill moves like I just said, and other things, because it's no good to just be able to do a Maradona and then do it all the time, because there are certain instances when that's not on. So I'm also going to discuss when is the right time to actually do a skill move and when should you not do a skill move. And this is a very tricky topic, but I'm happy to try and tackle it and see what we can do. So let's go over right away. I'm going to write this down so I don't forget. What skill moves are effective and what are not? So what skill moves are effective and what are not? So when you're looking for an effective skill move, you really have to immediately differentiate between a skill move that looks fancy and cool between a skill move that is actually going to help you beat a defender. Because honestly, there are many simple skill moves out there that will be very effective. Like a simple change in pace can actually beat a defender many, many times. And in fact, if you watch many of the professional players, a lot of the skill moves they use are just simple changes in direction or pace timed well. So if you watch Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, Isco, Marcelo, whoever you want to watch who's a skillful player, watch what they do the majority of the time. Yes, when you go on YouTube and watch like a highlight video of them or a compilation or like a skill video, you're only going to get like when they do cool skill moves that are going to be good for the video. This is called media bias. It's not as prominent on YouTube, but in TV it is. But on YouTube, if someone's making a compilation of a player, so like say Ronaldo, they're not going to show him they're not going to show like all the footage of him just running past someone, because that's not entertaining. But they are going to show his crazy amount of step overs. They are going to show when he does, a certain cool move. But they're not going to necessarily show when he does the effective things. And just realize the reason for that isn't because those things aren't effective. It's because they're looking for entertainment value. So you need to now take away the entertainment value and look at what moves are actually effective. So that's what we're talking about now. So here's some moves I think are very, very effective. Whenever I talk to players about picking moves to use, There are three moves I always recommend players start with. They are the step over, the body feint, and the Cruyff. Now, here's why I recommend these moves. These moves are absolutely fantastic. They're versatile, and having these three moves mastered will allow you to be able to get yourself out of many situations and also become a very dangerous player. And here's why. There's an important component about all three of these moves. First off, although the step over could be argued to be more of a fancy move, it really isn't. It's just kind of a bedazzled or, dressed up body feint. A step over is simply stepping over the ball instead of leaning past the ball like you do in a body feint. But here's why these three moves are very effective. We'll start with the Cruyff. The Cruyff is very effective because you make it look like you're going to do one thing and then do another, if you do it properly. With the Cruyff, you make it look like you're going to shoot, cross, pass, clear the ball, or whatever else, and instead, you take it back out the other way. This works because if you're in a crossing position and you go to cross, the defender who's defending you is his first thing on their mind is going to be, don't let them cross. So they're going to feed in to the thought of you're going to cross and try and block your cross, you Cruyff, you go out the other way. When it comes to shooting, if you guys want to know why, say, the chop or the fake shot or the Cruyff works so well when you're in a shooting position, is because the last thing a defender wants you to do, especially if you're relatively close to goal, if you're in the 18-yard box, the last thing they want you to do is shoot because that potentially allows you to score. So there's a lot more behind a skill move. So like when we talk about like situational skill moves, for example, a Cruyff might not be the best thing to do in, an isolated area on the pitch where you can't cross, shoot, or pass anyway, because then they know, wait a second, there's nowhere for them to take the ball, so therefore they can't shoot, they can't pass, they can't cross, so they're probably going to try and fake me out. So you have to kind of know when to do which move. But that's the Cruyff, and that's why it works so well. The step over is beautiful because it really makes it look like you're going to go one way, and then you go the other. And what I love about the step over is that there's two components to the fake, or the actual component of the move, or the mechanics of the move that fakes out a defender. The first is the step. The step literally, if you do it right, literally makes it look like you're going to take the ball in that direction, and then you step over at the last minute. So when you go to step over the ball, it looks like with your foot, you're going to take the ball that way. That's the first selling point of the step over. The second part is you also, if you get really good at the step over, you lean when you take your step. So you step over the ball and you lean in that direction that you stepped. So now not only does the defender think you're going to take the ball with your foot, but you're also selling them with the lean. And even if you only accomplish one of those two things, you're most likely going to accomplish or succeed with the step over. So that's why the step over is really good. And another good thing about the step over is you can practice it so much that you get really, really fast with it. I actually just created a video yesterday. Technically, it's actually going to be marked as Wednesday because I released it at like midnight because I had some stuff going on. But take a look at that video. It's called Soccer Skills for Kids Step Over. Although it's labeled Soccer Skills for Kids, don't let that deter you if you're older or more advanced. I go over the move. The only reason it's labeled Soccer Skills for Kids is because I think the step over is a move that kids should learn as quickly and as early as possible, because it's a move you'll be using for the rest of your playing days. It's that effective. But that's why the step over is so good. Now, the body feint, as most of you will know, is being made famous by Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi loves the body feint. So when it comes to the best player in the world, or the player who I think is the best in the world, possibly the best of all time, I'm definitely going to try and emulate him. And that's why I started doing the body feint, because I looked at Messi's game and I said, he does the body feint all the time. Maybe I should try and incorporate that into my game. I practiced it often, and I saw, wow, this is such a good move. And the reason this move is so good is for so many reasons. One, it's versatile, and all that means is you can do many different things with it. So, for example, I could even mess up my body feint and still retain the ball. There are a few moves, and actually a lot of moves, that if you mess them up, you're probably going to lose the ball. But if you mess up the body feint, the ball's still pretty close to your feet, meaning you can recover. So that's one thing I love about the body feint. Two, you can do the body feint when you're standing still, and you can do the body feint when you're moving fast, and at pace. I personally love to use the body feint when I'm running at someone. There's nothing, I think that's the most effective way to use it. I think if you're running at someone and you quickly shift your body to make it look like you're going one way and then go a different way, I think that's really effective because it's hard for a defender to break their momentum and follow you at that point. One of my favorite moves outside the step over, or one of my favorite things to do when I'm near goal, is I'll drive at the last defender, and doing a step over is one of my favorite things in this position as well, but I'll run right at them pretty quickly, maybe not as fast as I can, but like 80-90%, do a quick body feint, and then try and curl it into the far corner. And this has worked for me so many times because the defender, he can't do too much in that situation. Even if he knows I'm going to do a body feint, it's going to be really hard for him to take the ball off me. So it's a great move to use in that situation. So if you're going to learn 3 moves and try and master them like I recommend all players do, have 3 moves that you have mastered. Because like I say, it's better to have 3 moves that you have mastered than 7 moves or 5 moves or 10 moves that you know you can do like okay. You want to be able to do the 3 moves that you've mastered 9 times out of 10, actually 9.9 times out of 10, you want to be able to do these moves almost perfectly. So that's why you need to choose 3. And the body feint, step over, and Cruyff are a combination that I think works very, very well. And once you master those 3, or whatever 3 you pick, you can of course add more moves. There are many more moves I use. I love the Maradona, for example. I do the chop all the time. I do the bait and take. I even do the elastico and the Stanley Matthews quite a bit. I mix up my step over. So, there's many more moves out there. But the reason I also do those moves is because I spent the time, especially when I was younger, to master the Cruyff, the body feint, and the step over. So I feel like we're getting a little off track here. I just wanted to describe those moves I recommend. Just one thing in these podcasts, guys, for those of you who are new, I will go off on tangents all the time. So don't worry if, we don't stick on topic all the time. I might go on a rant. I might get emotional about something and go off on a topic. So don't worry about that. So I also told you I would talk about situational skill moves. Now, this is probably one of the things that confuses players the most as far as skill moves are concerned. When do I use this move? When do I use that move? And so on. Now, this is very important because obviously there are going to be times when you should use a step over, or you can use a step over, and when you shouldn't. There are going to be times when a Maradona makes sense and when it doesn't. Now, this is a really hard topic to answer because there are one of the great things about football, or soccer, I should say, for you over here. One of the great things about it is there's still things that haven't been done. There's so many different possibilities, endless possibilities in a match, that there isn't one concrete thing that you have to do in each situation. You can get creative with it, but there are definitely certain moves that should be done in certain situations and shouldn't be done in other situations. Now, how I determine this is I like to think of certain moves as isolated one-on-one moves and other moves as moves where you need to keep the ball close to your feet. So let me give you an example. An isolated one-on-one move for me is a move like an elastico. You're not going to do an elastico when there are 3 people around you. Maybe if you're Ronaldinho or Robinho or Neymar, you can get away with it. But if you have 3 defenders around you, the elastico is a move where you need space. You need to be able to do the move quickly and then run into space. Whereas, for example, the body feint is a move you could do in both situations. You don't need that much space to do the body feint. Another good example is actually the La Croqueta. It's a move that keeps the ball very close to your feet. So if you're in a situation where you need to dribble out of a tough spot and say there are 3 defenders around you, you could La Croqueta the first defender and still have the ball close enough to your feet to be able to control it away from the other 2. Where if you try to elastico in that situation, you might beat the first defender, and you probably will, but you're probably just going to present the ball to one of the other defenders. So that's an kind of example of situational skill moves. You have to be aware of what situations are best for certain skill moves. And this, again, is a very hard thing to explain because obviously when I go into a game, I'm going to instinctively know, not because I know more or anything, just because I've played for a long time. So I'm aware that, say, a step over doesn't work in this situation, or a body feint won't work here, or a whatever won't work here, because I've done it so many times. I'm aware, okay, what is the ideal move for this situation? So the more you play, the more moves you try, the more you experiment. That's the important keyword here. The more you experiment, the more you'll know, oh, okay, I should use this move in this situation. Always be reflecting and going over what you've done in matches and even practices, especially practices, and say, well, what could I have done differently in this situation? So let's say you took a defender one-on-one and you tried a Maradona and it didn't work. Look back and look at what you did. Did you do the Maradona correctly? Let's say you did and it didn't work. So look at why it didn't work and say, what could I have done differently? Maybe if I did the step over, that would have worked differently because I had him isolated on the wing. I could have done a step over and got the cross in. The Maradona wasn't really a move I should have been using there. If you analyze your game like that, you will progress much faster than if you don't, because you'll realize, okay, I should have used a different move in that situation. So now the next time you find yourself in that situation, you'll make sure, okay, I shouldn't use the Maradona in this situation. Maybe I should use a step over. Let's try the body feint and so on. Soccer, like anything in life, is one big experiment with yourself. Feeling out what, especially for young players and players who are just getting into the game, use your practice sessions to test things out. Use your individual training especially to test things out. Can I hit the ball in this certain way? Can I try this move? Will this move work in this situation? Because in all honesty, I can't give you, the perfect list of what moves should be done in certain situations. I can give you a general overview. I can give you, well, a step over should be done on the wing, or step over should be done maybe before you shoot and you do a step over and shoot, or a chop should be done near the 18-yard box. But me saying that doesn't speak to every single situation, because I couldn't possibly speak to every single situation when it comes to moves. So you need to start experimenting with your skill moves and seeing what works when. When does, a chop work? When does a Cruyff work? I can give you a general idea of when something works. But all in all, the fastest way you're going to find out what move works when is trying them out. I'm not saying go into matches, and this is before you go out into your next match and try Cruyff in your own 18-yard box, don't listen to me here. Do these in practices. When it comes to game time, stick to what you know, and that's just pretty obvious. Stick to what you know when it comes to game time. But outside of game time, first analyze your game and be trying new things in practices, okay? That's very important, and that's what's going to make you an unpredictable and impact player. You need to use your practice time wisely. You need to be practicing on your own, on new moves, on new skills, on new things like that. That's what's going to make you that player who stands out when it comes game time. Because in practice, you've practiced your skill moves, you've practiced your unpredictability, you've practiced these other things. Then when it comes to game time, you're familiar with those things and you can actually use them in games. I would do this in high school and college. There weren't many players in high school and college, and sometimes even in professional football, but the higher level you get, you do see it more. And what it was I would see perfectly skillful players not demonstrating their skill. And this wasn't down to lack of ability. They were able to do them in practice just fine. They just didn't have that risk-taking drive to do them in matches. So don't become a player like that. Practice so much to where you're comfortable with certain moves, to where you're able to easily do certain things, to the point where you're comfortable using them in matches. And again, this is why I say master 3 moves specifically before you start practicing every single move. And I know it's fun. I mean, you want to go out there, you want to practice different skills. They're cool. You want to show your friends, you want to show your teammates, you want to, do an elastico on a defender in a game because it'll be awesome. And trust me, it is. But don't do that until you've mastered the move. You want to be effective, not fancy. You want to be effective, not trying to soak up glory. You want to be that player who can contribute to your team. You want to be that player who can beat that defender one-on-one and put a good ball into the box. You want to be that guy who can turn out of trouble and retain possession. And that's going to come through practicing these, 3 moves that you've selected. So once you've mastered those 3 moves, then I encourage you to move on to other moves. Okay, so I'm going to now, again, we're going off on certain tangents here, But I'm going to list the moves, I think, because I think I'm going to name this podcast something like Soccer Skills to Use in Games. So I'm going to quickly, let me see what time. Okay, we're about 20 minutes into this. So we have about 10 minutes. This is perfect. I don't know if I'm going to get into any of your questions, guys, but definitely still ask me them at on these, and I will definitely, try and answer them. I just wanted to get this topic out there because I think it's very important. So, as far as what skills to use in matches, again, there are some staple moves, some moves that I definitely think will always remain effective, will always be good to use in matches. And then there are, again, moves that are used in certain situations. Like a move like the Elastico, people might look at that move and say, that's a fancy move. Why would I want to do that? That's too, it's not an effective move. In fact, I think it's a very effective move. I've done the Elastico many times in matches, and it has worked amazingly well. The problem is, because it's a relatively difficult move or whatever, it's seen as a fancy move. Don't give in to that. When I say a fancy move, I'm talking about trying to rainbow somebody. Okay, I'm talking about doing 5 step overs and then that's it. That's what I'm talking about. But moves like the Elastico are actually very effective in certain situations. So you need to stick to those kind of moves that are effective. So here are the skill moves I recommend you can actually use in games. First, the 3 I went over: the body feint, the Cruyff, and the step over. 3 fantastic moves that you should definitely be using in games. So I'm take a drink right here. So those 3 moves especially are great to use in matches. Another move, the chop. The chop is another one of my favorites. I'm a striker, so for strikers and anyone who finds themselves in crossing or shooting positions, it's much like the Cruyff, although I would argue that the Cruyff is a much more versatile move. The chop is beautiful because you can go to fake a shot, and if the other team perceives you as a dangerous player who has a good shooting ability, they're going to slide down, they're going to dive at the ball, they're going to want to prevent you from shooting. And I found this move is beautiful in the 18-yard box. The amount of times I've been able to chop a defender by making it look like I'm going to shoot, opening my body up, and then taking it back to my left foot, and then scoring with my left foot because I faked it, or vice versa, left to right, as being numerous times. Simply by a simple move, the chop, which is very easy to learn, by the way, as well. There will be a video out sometime soon on Thursday. Watch the voted video tomorrow, actually, because this is going out on Wednesday, on Thursday, because the chop, although the video isn't about the chop, I am going to be going over the chop because it's related to the topic of the video. It's a great move. It's a move used by many great players. So don't underestimate it. Just because it's not so fancy, don't underestimate the chop. Okay? So we got over that. 5, sorry, is the Maradona. Now, this is another move that's perceived as fancy, and I wouldn't call it fancy. It looks really elegant when you do it properly. It looks like really cool when you see a player pull it off perfectly with good timing. Everyone's like, oh, wow, whoa, what? He got him. Broke his ankles, dude. Whatever. But when you break it down, it's just 2 drag backs. It's 1 drag back with 1 foot, and then you're turning while you do the second drag back. And this move, again, I have found very effective. I've used it to great effect in matches myself. I've seen other players use this move to great effect. Again, it's a more situational thing, but there's a reason players like Maradona, who it's named after, used it all the time. There's a reason Zinedine Zidane was also known for it. There's a reason players like Eden Hazard use it. Ben Arfa uses it. There's another player, actually, I think Paul Pogba uses it quite a bit. There's actually a player I'm trying to think of who uses it all the time now, and I can't think of his name. He literally pretty much uses it as much as Zidane used to use it. Maybe I'll think of it. If you know the answer, if you know a player right now who uses the Maradona all the time, let me know. It's probably who I'm thinking of. I can't believe I can't think of his name right now. I'm trying to even think of what league he plays in, but he uses it all the time to grade it. Oh, it's Payet. Sorry. Dimitri Payet uses this move all the time as well, which is why he's drawn comparisons with Zidane. But it's such an effective move in certain situations. So that's the 5th one I would say you can use in games. A few others, and here's a move I'll describe. I did a video on it a while ago, or at least it's a part of a compilation of moves. It's called the bait and take. This is one of my favorite moves to use in and around the box. It's actually a move Jamie Vardy uses a lot. For those of you who have been following his story, he's used it to terrorize defenses. And it's a simple kind of, well, it's exactly as it sounds, bait and take. So you draw a defender in and you take it away from them. So what you do with this, it's like a reverse Stanley Matthews, if you guys know what that is. So what you're going to do, and I like to add moves to this, so I'll do like a little body feint. I'll come inside, and just as a defender is turning back inside to defend me, I'll take it back outside. If you want an example of this, look at some Jamie Vardy highlight videos, and you'll see him run at a defender with pace. He'll quickly move to the right, and then very, very quickly move back to the left. And he's scored many goals doing this. He's scored in the Premier League like this. He uses this move all the time, and it's really, really effective. You can do it the other way as well. You can go left to right. But if you are isolated with a defender, this is a beautiful move, one I would definitely recommend. I've had players tell me that they've used this move, and it's just, they've, as quote-unquote, broken ankles. They've, destroyed defenders, as well as they say, using this move. So another move sorry, microphone just dropped, so I don't know how that's going to come out. But this is another move I highly recommend you take a look at. The bait and take inside to outside. Again, I will have that on a video very soon, so you can take a look at that. So the bait and take, now I will talk about the Stanley Matthews, another really good skill to use in game. And the Stanley Matthews, you guys probably know, I don't know if you know, but it's basically use the inside of your foot this time. So you touch it inside and then quickly go outside. Messi uses this move all the time, Gareth Bale, Di Maria. Actually, funnily enough, a lot of left-footed players use this move all the time. It's a great move for wingers. It makes it look like you're going to go inside and then you quickly go outside. It's actually pretty much the same thing as the bait and take, but instead of going outside to inside, you go inside to outside. So that's another great move. So I think that's 7 moves I've just given you, maybe even 8. I don't remember, that I think are soccer skills that you can use in matches, in games that are effective. Now, guys, I'm also going to link a video right now, or just take a look at the description, because I'm going to have a lot of videos in there for you guys. But I'm going to link a video with the 10 soccer skills, best attacking soccer skills, or something like that I made a while ago. And what I want you to do with this, I want you to take action, because, it's no good if you, and I say this a lot, and the reason I say it a lot is because it's so true. It's no good for you to be listening to this, to be watching my videos and not taking action, because it's all, good if you want to watch my videos and do nothing. But if you actually want to become a better player, you need to implement the advice you're hearing, whether it's online, from your coaches, from whatever source, as long as it's, good information. You need to be implementing it. So I'm going to have that video in the description. Take a look at all the videos in the description. And in that, it's going to have 10 skill moves. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to choose 3 of those skill moves, and I want you to master them. I literally want you to practice these moves every single day for between 10 to 30 minutes. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to master these moves. Like I said, my 3 recommended moves are the body feint, the step over and Cruyff to get you started. But you can choose any of the 3 in that video. But the reason, again, you want to master these moves is because you want to make it so that, like, when you're in games, you don't even have to think about it. You see an opportunity and you don't have to think about what you have to do. Your body just responds and does a step over and does a body feint and does a Cruyff, because you've done them so often. Okay? So we're almost at the 30-minute mark. Again, this has been a really off-the-cuff video, or podcast, I should say. I haven't really had I just kind of went in going, okay, I'm going to talk about skill moves. I'm going to try and, get through some of the barriers some players might have. Again, I know from personal experience, and I know a lot of you guys from your experience as well, it's hard to learn skill moves without actually seeing them. That's why I've given you the videos in the description. That's why I recommend you go watch them. And it is very hard sometimes explaining certain things about skill moves, like timing, like when to use certain moves. And the best thing I can really tell you is make sure you're experimenting. Like I said earlier, when you're in practices, when you're practicing by yourself, work on certain moves, experiment with different moves. When you're in your team training, let's say, for example, when you train every day and you individually work on the 3 moves I've told you to work on, which is the body feint, step over, and Cruyff. Let's say you're doing that every day, and 2 weeks goes by, and you decide you're going to try it in your team practices now. absolutely do that. Try to step over and see how it works. Try to Cruyff in the body feint and see what situations they work in and what they don't. You have to make sure you're experimenting. That is like the most important takeaway from this podcast. Experiment, 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 and take action. Experiment slash take action, which you kind of need both to do the other. So make sure you're doing that. Again, I really want to reiterate that point. Experiment and take action, because that's what's going to make you a better player. All right, guys, remember, I will probably be answering your questions next time on the next podcast. This is podcast number 9. So we're going to do what we did last time. I am looking at some of your questions from the 8th podcast. So I can see, and I see a few that I like, so I'll definitely try and answer some of those. But also leave me some questions down in the comments for this one, okay? And I will release the next podcast when we hit 50 likes on this podcast and 10 shares on social media. Again, to share the video, all you have to do is go below the video, hit the share button. It looks like an arrow, or it actually is an arrow. Hit that, share it to Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Reddit, whatever. And once we get 10 of those and 50 likes on this podcast, I will release the next one answering your questions. Okay, guys? Again, make sure you tune in tomorrow, because we're going to have a voted video. I think it's one you're going to really like. I'm really glad this one was selected, because I've been meaning to make it for a while. And I've gone to the field, got all the footage together. Everything's ready to go. It's turned out pretty well. So definitely tune in tomorrow for that video. Take a look at the videos I've linked to you in the description down below. Again, there's going to be skill moves and other things in there, so you definitely want to take a look at that. All right, guys, make sure you also like. Don't forget to share this podcast. Subscribe if you're new. If you've made it all the way to the end, and you're someone who's not subscribed yet, awesome. That's incredible that you've actually spent the last 31 minutes in order to listen to me talk about skill moves. I hope you learned something. I hope you got something out of it. In traditional fashion, we usually have a hashtag that indicates I know that you've listened to the end. So we're just going to go hashtag skill moves. That's pretty easy, right? So if you put hashtag skill moves in the comments, it makes me, or lets me know that you've listened to this entire podcast. And the reason I do this is because it lets me know which players are truly trying to learn, which players are watching this and listening to this all the way to the end and taking in all the information. And if you hashtag and then leave your hashtag skill moves or skill move or something like that, and you leave a comment or a question, I am more likely to answer your question. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I am working on getting onto SoundCloud. I'm sorry that's taking so long. I've got so much to do with the channel right now that it's hard to prioritize things. Or prioritize that, but I am going to try and get these on SoundCloud. Again, guys, thanks for listening. Subscribe, share, like, and I'll see you, or I won't see you, but you'll hear me on the next podcast.